Anthony Joshua retains his IBF and WBA World Heavyweight titles with a 10th round stoppage over Carlos Takam. It was a controversial stoppage. I'll get to that later on in the video. But first of all, the way the fight played out. Now, I've seen Carlos Takam fight many times. And going into this fight, I'd seen him fight on the back foot against people like Alexander Povetkin, even Mike Perez early in that fight. And I felt that if Carlos Takam tried to box on the back foot against Anthony Joshua, that would be a suicide mission and that he'd get blown out early. Boy, was I wrong. Carlos Takam was far better, or should I say far more effective on the back foot against Joshua than I anticipated, because that's what Takam did, particularly early in the fight. He was trying to box on the back foot and basically try and take away Joshua's offense, confuse Joshua with movement, lateral movement and head movement and messing with the range, and then try and build an offense after that. You know, once he'd established taking away Joshua's offense, then try and build his own offense. And he did a pretty good job, I'm not going to lie. Now, he wasn't winning most of the rounds, but he was landing decent shots. He landed some nice body shots, particularly towards the middle of the fight, landed a few good headshots, and he succeeded in making Joshua miss quite a bit, making Joshua hesitate to throw because he didn't want to miss and get countered, particularly by Takam's left hook. And he made Joshua confused. I was impressed by what Takam did, and he did expose Joshua a little bit in terms of Joshua's got a few weaknesses there when it comes to dealing with movement. And Carlos Takam is by no means the slickest heavyweight you're ever going to see. If you go back to the Olympics when Joshua fought Aris Savon, is that, yeah, I think that's his name. Aris Savon is the cousin. Is he the cousin or the nephew of Felix Savon? Savon was a slick fighter who moved and boxed, and he made Joshua look very stiff and clunky. Takam, obviously not as slick or good as Savon, but he employed similar tactics and it worked. So imagine if that was a prime David Haye in there against Anthony Joshua with his type of head movement. How would he have done in Takam's position? You'd have to imagine he would have got hit even less than Takam did and would have been sharper on the counter. How would a prime Tyson Fury, the Fury that fought Vladimir Klitschko, using similar tactics, how would he do against that Joshua? More people are going to believe that that Tyson Fury would beat Anthony Joshua after watching this Takam fight than they did beforehand. And there was a lot of people beforehand who felt like Tyson Fury would beat Joshua anyway. But after watching that, they'll say, you know what? This has strengthened my case, and it's going to convert some people who didn't think Fury would beat Joshua. Now they're going to think he would beat Joshua, because he didn't like the movement, the lateral movement, the head movement, the subtle little things that Takam was doing. Joshua didn't like it. It made him feel uncomfortable. Now, to be completely fair, there was a clash of heads, and it almost looked like a deliberate headbutt from Carlos Takam early in the fight. I think it was in the, what was it, second round or third round? He came boring in, and the top of his head smashed into Anthony Joshua's nose very hard, and it bust Anthony Joshua's nose. He started bleeding quite profusely from the nose. I don't know how much that affected him. Maybe it did affect his breathing quite a bit. Maybe it made him wary about getting hit on the nose again. I don't know, but we do have to take that into account. Takam ended up getting cut on both eyes. At least one of the cuts was from a tremendous uppercut that Anthony Joshua landed on Takam. I think it was in the fourth round or so. Takam did go down in one of those early rounds. I can't remember which round it was now. He did go down. His glove touched the ground after getting wobbled. But as the fight progressed and Joshua started slowing down, because Takam was landing nice body shots and whatnot, and then there's this weight that Joshua came in at, 254 pounds, which evidently, for me, proves exactly what I was saying before the fight. He's too heavy at 254. You go back and look at Joshua's early fights when he was 235, and look how much faster he was at that weight. Both hand speed and foot speed, mobility, flexibility, everything. He was much faster when he was 235, 240 than he is now at 254. I don't understand why there are people trying to make a case for him being 254 and acting like that's a good thing. I just don't get it. So he looked more and more slow and clunky as the fight went on. And he stopped hurting Takam as much as he was early in the fight, where he shook him up a few times and managed to drop him. As the fight progressed, Takam also started getting used to Joshua's angles, where he threw the punches from. And Takam was doing quite a good job of slipping and rolling with a lot of the shots and blocking Joshua's hooks. And then Takam started moving on to the inside. And that's a pattern that Takam follows in a lot of his fights, where he'll start on the back foot a bit cautiously, then he'll start applying the pressure. He did it against Joseph Parker early, did it against Povetkin, did it against Mike Perez, you know, done it against several fighters. So, yeah, as the fight went on, Takam was adjusting more. Finally, Joshua got through with some nice shots in the 10th round. And this is where we get to the stoppage. Takam was definitely wobbled. There's no question. I personally think it was a bad stoppage. A very bad stoppage. I know Takam was cut over both eyes, and he was definitely wobbled. But the reason I say it was a bad stoppage is because Joshua was missing a lot of punches in the fight. And after missing a lot of shots, Takam would come on strong. And Joshua would look gassed. So who's to say Takam couldn't have survived that point there? That bit of choppy water. And come back at Joshua and maybe had some success of his own. I understand he was behind on the scorecards. I understand that he wasn't winning the fight. He was cut over both eyes. He was hurt. He was late. He could have got stretched out. But this is a world heavyweight title fight, people. This was Takam's first opportunity to fight for the title. A veteran fighter. And they're going to take away his any, last hope of winning the fight in a situation like that. No, bad call by the referee. Bad call. Bad call. Give the guy an opportunity. It's the world heavyweight title at stake here. Against a guy who has had a very long and tough career, and he wanted his chance, and he was still in there, and Takam hadn't given up hope in the fight. If it was a situation where he was getting battered and he'd given up hope and he'd stopped trying, I could understand them stopping it like that. But it wasn't like that at all. Takam was still trying hard. And he was still thinking in his mind, I can take Joshua into deep waters. Maybe he wouldn't have been able to, but give him the opportunity. The way it was stopped, I don't agree with it. Johnny Nelson, who works for Sky, he also disagreed with the stoppage. So, it's not just me here. There's plenty of people, and I'm sure there's loads of fans. In fact, the fans in the stadium, obviously fans are bloodthirsty. They're not maybe as rational or reasonable as people like you or me, but they booed the stoppage, And it was a kind of a funny atmosphere in the post-fight interviews with Joshua. It's like the crowd were almost teetering on turning on Joshua. They booed Eddie Hearn, as they normally do. But they were kind of like a bit iffy with Joshua, the crowd. It's the first time I've heard a crowd like that with Joshua. And Joshua was kind of like walking on eggshells, trying not to say the wrong thing so the crowd would boo him. It was a very strange kind of atmosphere afterwards. And I have to say, I have to laugh at Carlos Takam, because suddenly in the post-fight interview on Sky, my man remembered his flipping English. This guy's been going throughout the whole build-up to this fight, acting like he needs an interpreter. And as soon as the Sky man puts a mic in his face in the post-fight interview, oh, now he can understand and talk English. Without his interpreter. You gotta laugh. But yeah, overall, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a poor performance from Joshua, because he did win the majority of the rounds and he did pretty much dominate, but it was certainly a tougher fight than I expected for him. I thought he'd get rid of Takam within maybe 4 or 5 rounds. Takam did much better tactically than I expected. So I don't want to say it was a poor performance by Joshua. Then again, it depends on what you class as a poor performance. But for me, it wasn't necessarily a poor performance, but it was a performance that exposed and highlighted a lot of the weaknesses that he still has. I was talking to somebody on social media just before the fight started who was adamant that the heavyweight division is very weak and that Joshua was going to go on a very long unbeaten run because there's nobody out there that can even compete with him other than maybe Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury if he manages to come back. So yeah, he was saying there's nobody out there that's going to trouble Joshua. I've never felt that to be the case. If you've been following my channel for any length of time, you'll know that I've been saying that this era of heavyweight boxing is not going to be dominated by one guy. It's going to be a round robin type situation where all these top heavyweights are swapping wins and losses, and there are going to be upsets too. Some of these guys like Joshua Parker, maybe even Fury if he comes back, Wilder, some of these guys are going to get beaten by fighters who you wouldn't expect them to get beat by. I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen. That's the kind of era we're in now. We're not in an era like a Klitschko era. That's not going to happen again. Not with this set of heavyweights anyway. This set of heavyweights have all got vulnerabilities. They're all big guys. You know, it's not like the Klitschko era where they were the two big guys and pretty much everybody else was small, with very few exceptions for the majority of the Klitschko era. And they could get away, especially Vladimir, with incessant holding and doing whatever the hell he wanted in the ring. Joshua is marketed and sold on being an exciting heavyweight. The fans would never support Joshua if he was as negative as a Klitschko for the majority of Klitschko's reign. Towards the end of Klitschko's reign, to be fair to him, he did become more exciting. But for the majority of his reign, Vladimir I'm talking about, he was very negative, used ridiculously excessive holding. Joshua would never get away with that in the UK. The fans would turn on him if he started fighting like that. So there's that aspect to it. And there's also the aspect that, like I say, these guys are a lot more evenly matched today than Klitschko was with the majority of contenders during his era. Most of them were hardly even in shape. They were like fat cruiserweights for the majority of the Klitschko era. Whereas this era, you got genuine heavyweights, athletic guys who can punch, who have speed, and who all have vulnerabilities. So, yeah, I think it was kind of like maybe a bit of a pedestrian performance by Anthony Joshua. It certainly didn't set the world alight. But some of the great heavyweights had pedestrian performances. You know, when Lennox Lewis was fighting, he had pedestrian performances. He didn't look good against Zeljko Mavrovic. You know, he didn't look great against an overweight Ray Mercer. You know, there were plenty of times. I mean, Lewis didn't look great against Frank Bruno. I know he finished the fight explosively, but up until the finish, he didn't look good against Frank Bruno at all. And, you know, there are a few other fights as well where Lewis didn't look too clever. So, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say a poor performance by my standards, but I would say a bit of a pedestrian performance by Anthony Joshua. He was never in serious trouble, although I do feel like some of the body shots, you felt some of the body shots that Takam hit him with. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What did you think of the stoppage? I'm sure some of you are going to say, shut up, Hatman. It was a great stoppage. And I'm sure some of you are going to agree with me and people like Johnny Nelson that actually, no, it wasn't a good stoppage. And what did you think of AJ's performance overall? Has your perception of him changed? Has your perception of the heavyweight division changed after this performance? You know, the way that he dealt with Klitschko, people expected him, including myself, to blast Takam away. But, you know, Takam, with his veteran skills, clever tactics, exposed weaknesses there. How do you think Joshua would do against the prime David Haye? How do you think Joshua would do against Tyson Fury, the Fury that fought Vladimir? Drop it all in the comment section below and let me know how you feel. Oh, yeah, and also, based on this, obviously, I did the video pre-fight about Larry Holmes saying that Anthony Joshua would beat Mike Tyson. People are really going to be going in on Larry Holmes after that, and they're going to be saying, hey, man, you said Joshua could beat Tyson. No, I didn't. Maybe I will say that Joshua can beat Tyson when I do my video about it. But in my video, I never said Joshua could beat Tyson. I was just giving you some facts, like several journeymen and average kind of heavyweights managed to go the distance with Mike Tyson. That's just what I was pointing out before you all say that I shouldn't even think for a second about whether Joshua could beat Tyson. I should just instantly say Tyson wipes him out in 2 rounds. All right. I will do a separate video about that, about who I think wins out of Joshua and Tyson. But yeah, for the record, I did not say Joshua. I didn't say who I thought would win that fight in that particular video before some people get it twisted, because I know how the Tyson fans stay. Anyway, yeah, let me know how you feel about everything I've talked about in this video. What did you make of the fight, the performances, so on and so forth. It's Hatman, I'm out.